Indeed, I understand that as a philanthropist, your goal is to change people's lives for the better. Mayor Bloomberg, your comment was not in line with your own philosophy, but rather fuels unacceptable stereotyping and racist behaviors and attitudes towards Native people. In the interest of building bridges rather than burning them, I invite you to meet with the USET tribes, including those from New York, at our annual meeting, which will be held in the United Nations the week of October 11th in 2010. Nearly all the federally recognized tribes from Texas to Maine will be represented at this meeting, providing an excellent opportunity for us to have a dialogue with you over tribal sovereignty and government-to-government relationships between and among Indian nations, the federal government, and state governments. This meeting will also give you an opportunity to come to know us as a strong and proud people who are working every day to forge a bright future for ourselves and our children. Today, Native nations are rebuilding after centuries of oppression. This is something we seek to do in a way that is also beneficial to the non-Indian communities which now surround us. We have always offered and continue to offer good things to our neighbors and friends. However, we will not bend before threats of violence, nor will we accept the notion that our sovereign authority is diminished over the relatively small parcels of our original lands that we still control after being deprived of the remainder largely by force, trickery, and deceit. At the end of the day, Mayor Bloomberg, you owe an apology to all Native people. If you can open your heart to the necessity of such an apology, then there would be a path forward for rebuilding the relationship with Native people that is based on mutual respect. It's signed in peace by Brian Patterson, president of USET. I do have copies of this letter for the press that may want them or anyone that may want a copy. And on a personal note, as a member of the Narragansett tribe in Rhode Island, we know all too well how people and political stances can affect people, the Native people. My tribe was attacked just several years ago when the state troopers stormed our reservation over cigarette issues. So we know all too well, we stand in brotherhood and solidarity with our brothers from New York over this issue. We find it very offensive that the mayor made these comments, and I find it even more offensive that he hasn't apologized yet. So, Mr. Mayor, I question you, whether he's in his office now or not, I question you, why haven't you apologized yet? The comments that you've heard the last couple of days that have been in the press speak of how the nations feel about his comments, and he still hasn't apologized. So if it wasn't a mistake on his part, then he's showing that's how he feels. And that's a terrible way to feel about my brothers and sisters, and we will stand with them in defending their rights.
And now it is my honor to introduce Lance Gumbs. He's our state representative to the National Congress of the American Indians. He is a leader in his own community, in Shinnecock. And without further ado, Mr. Gumbs.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Lance Gumbs. I am the senior trustee for the Shinnecock Nation. I'm also the vice president for the National Congress of American Indian for the Northeast region here. Before I go into my comments, I have my own personal comments that I'd like to make. I think it's appalling, I think it's disrespectful, and I think it's downright racist what this mayor has said, what he has put out there, and the connotations that it evokes amongst Indian people. Mr. Mayor, from a Jewish background, you would not like it if I said to you, we're going to get the Gestapo and maybe bring Hitler back to regulate you. You would not like that. To the African American people with the KKK, should we bring them back to regulate them? These are the kind of connotations that your statements evoke in Indian people. They were wrong, they were racist, and they're unacceptable. And we demand an outright apology.
Yeah.
And I also am very upset right now that the governor of the state of New York has not come out and condemned these racist statements.
Yeah.
He is sitting back and has not said a word. On behalf of the National Congress of American Indian, I'd like to read a statement from our president, Jefferson Keel. Tribal leaders and American Indian people were severely disappointed in New York's Mayor Bloomberg when he suggested that Governor Patterson get a cowboy hat and a shotgun to to deal with issues on the Seneca Nation reservation. The mayor should apologize to not only American Indian people and the Seneca Nation, but also to the citizens of the United States for his uncivil and preposterous statements that inhibited our shared national purpose and progress. The cowboy and Indian stories of the Wild West are part of our history, but they are a dramatization and a dishonorable part of our history. It's largely propaganda. They were used to justify the westward expansion of the U.S. military and settlers into tribal territories that were guaranteed by treaties. There was excess brutal force of Native American men, women, and children who stood in the way of manifest destiny. It is no accident that Mayor Bloomberg revisited these stereotypes when he proposed that the governor of New York instigate violence against the Seneca Nation. The dispute is over tobacco taxes, and the Seneca Nation is defending its right to govern its territory and maintain a tax policy that promotes jobs and creates revenue, just like the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania or the City of New York. Yeah. But tribal rights are standing in the way of progress, so the mayor trotted out the old dehumanizing cliches. The National Congress of American Indian condemns Mayor Bloomberg's violent words against the Seneca Nation. We understand that the state and the Senecas are having a disagreement about tax policy, but legal disagreements between governments require responsible leadership, diplomacy, and not reckless calls for violence. It is clear an apology to all of us is in order. Jefferson Keel is the president of the National Congress of American Indian. It is with great sadness that I stand here before you today, in 2010, and I have to revisit our historical past once again at the hands of a mayor who has obviously no clue as to what his words mean to our people. It's a shame that we, in this city of New York, with its diversity, has to go through this once again in our history. And I hope that when you write this, you don't write this from a perspective, as I just brought up the Jewish people, from an anti-Semitic view. This is how we feel as Indian people. And it's disgusting, it's hurtful, and I hope that you write about it in a good way and help him to understand that we are no longer going to tolerate the insensitivities of our politicians here in the state of New York. Thank you very much.